Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex Wilson. Today, we're bringing an episode to you about a potential right tackle that the Giants could look at in free agency, especially if they're going to let Nate Solder walk this offseason. Of course, we know that Nate Solder is going to count $16.5 million against the cap if they do retain him. Ian Rappaport reported that the Giants are going to look to him and try and restructure that contract and potentially move him to right tackle. But this is an interesting situation because the Giants don't really know what his price tag could look like next year and if he's willing to take a pay cut. We know he opted out for the 2020 season due to COVID-19. Obviously, those concerns are justified. You know, his son was dealing with cancer, has been for a long time, so he elected that was the best case scenario for him and his family, just to opt out, keep them safe, make sure they don't, put any liabilities in place. But I think that was best for Nate. I'm hoping him and his family well. Of course, that is, first and foremost. But for the Giants, they're looking at this as a business decision. They kept him involved. They didn't cut him last offseason. So now we are looking at a potential situation where they either have to reduce his salary cap hit exponentially, or they're going to have to cut him and find another solution at right tackle. As we know, last year, the rotation was essentially Matt Peart and Cam Fleming. Cam Fleming played a majority of the games. Matt Peart showed some good forward progress until he suffered a bout of COVID, and it really, the fatigue that influenced him and a lot of players around the league. We saw it with Myles Garrett and Matt Peart too. The fatigue really hurt his ability to develop and take that next step forward. And unfortunately for the Giants, that forced them to roll with Cam Fleming and really stop the development of Peart midway through the year, and that was kind of disappointing. But I think that Matt Peart, he does have the tangibles. He's a massive wingspan. He actually did show some pretty good games in run blocking. His pass blocking needs work, but more reps. He's a third-round pick after all. He's going to need more time to refine those traits moving forward, but I do think he can be a future player for this team, a future starter. Now, going into the 2021 season with him, locked in, cemented as that starter, that is not really how I want to go with this offseason, because we don't know what he has. We don't know if he can hold down the position long term, and we need to have some support there. I think, utilizing him as a swing tackle and really developing him in that way would make him even more of a productive player for the Giants, really, because injuries, you never know when they're going to happen. Having solid depth is essential for teams, and I think, Matt Peart could be that guy that could be just a really solid depth piece, whether it's Andrew Thomas that suffers an injury or whoever they keep, really. But the right tackle position is one that I think we need to be talking more about, because the Giants ranked dead last in pass blocking efficiency last year. The run blocking, I think, was about 23rd in efficiency. So they, again, had a very bad offensive line. This is not, something that is going to go away. Dave Gettleman promised us he would solve this once and for all. He has not managed to do so. So here we are talking about it again for the third straight season. Really, it's been 7 years now, but it's just been constant. Dave Gettleman, this is what he's supposed to be good at. He found Nick Gates, a solid undrafted guy out of Nebraska. He's looking up at center. Andrew Thomas, he showed signs of growth, but I think now we have to be looking toward the future and saying, okay, he's got to take a step forward next season. I know he dealt with an injury. I know, it was his rookie year. He was forced to play more than we anticipated because of, Nate Solder opting out. But now we're looking at Nate and saying, can you play right tackle? That's the first question. And the answer is yes, maybe not well, because Nate Solder hasn't played right tackle since his rookie season in 2011. It's been over a decade since he last played that position. That's kind of a concern for me. I don't trust him, even at right tackle nonetheless. And he just took a year off from playing. So now you add in another factor. Not only has he not played in a decade, but he hasn't played in over a year as well. So, making the transition plus not having played, I don't feel optimistic about it, especially if we're going to be paying $10+ million per season. As I said, $16.5 million cap hit for next season. If they keep him at that number, they absolutely won't. If they cut him pre-June 1st, they will only have $6 million in cap savings. Not that much. He'll still count $10.5 million in dead money. But if they cut him post-June 1st, they can utilize the $10 million they would save toward their rookie draft class. There's a bunch of things they can do. Of course, last season we saw with Xavier McKinney going down, they went out and signed Logan Ryan as a supplement. That's, you have to be preparing for situations like that, because you never know when the Giants are going to have an injury, when, somebody's going to go down and you have to supplement it with a free agent signing. That's just the unfortunate reality of the NFL. But one player I think that could fit the bill for them is Darrell Williams. Now, Darrell Williams is an interesting player because, he signed with the Buffalo Bills last year at $2.25 million over 1 year. He bet on himself and it paid off astronomically. That minimal 2.2 2.25 million deal is now going to catapult up to maybe $10 million per season. So, we're going to see what happens with this player, but I think he's an interesting and intriguing player the Giants should keep tabs on because he was actually a Dave Gettleman draft pick. And since he was a Dave Gettleman draft pick, that means he has a familiarity with the Giants and really their general manager. Maybe that there is a chemistry, there is a relationship that they can build off of. Maybe he would be attractive to the Giants because of that. Now, we do know that Darrell Williams played so well for Buffalo. They want to keep him. I think he wants to stay. But, ultimately, a lot of players go where the money is. And I think that if Darrell Williams is looking for money, the Giants can say, you know what, let's save the money from Nate Solder. That's $10 million saved. Let's roll that over into Darrell Williams. Now, a lot of people will say they can't use that money if they cut Nate Solder June 1st, after June 1st, right? And that's correct. But they could do other things. They could transition tag Leonard Williams. They could franchise tag and extend him. There are a couple loopholes. These guys are professional. When it comes to manipulating the cap space, we see that the Saints do it all the time. The Giants can restructure contracts, whether it's James Bradberry or Blake Martinez. We've seen that in the past. So now we're sitting here and we're saying, the Giants will find ways to shed cap. I expect Levine Toilolo to go. I expect David Mayo to go. I expect Cody Cord to go. All these guys have zero dead cap hits next year, so they will save all of their entire contracts. They will find the money. Believe me, they'll find the money. Darrell Williams, though, is an intriguing player. Why? Because, he had a phenomenal year last year. He graded out per PFF with an 80.1 overall pass blocking grade, a 74.6 overall run blocking grade. He did have 9 penalties, which is kind of excessive. But for the most part, I think he was very, very good. And, in terms of allowed pressure, he'd allowed 7 sacks, which, again, not a great number. He allowed 20 hurries and, just 5 pressures overall. So, 29 pressures rather, sorry. But, 7 sacks is a big number. Nonetheless, he had great grades. He had phenomenal grades across the board. So maybe the 7 sacks wasn't entirely his fault. Maybe it was just a product of having a tight end that couldn't block on that side. Maybe it was Josh Allen running and shifting to his right side, making it easier for players to detach from Darrell Williams and gather the sacks. Josh Allen loves to maneuver in the pocket. So these are things that could be happening. But as for the Giants, I think this is an opportunity for them to maybe cash in on a right tackle, get a starter for the future, and really find a guy who can cement that right tackle position for the long term. Now, can they do that? Who knows? That's the question. It really comes down to money at a certain point, and if he's going to be looking for a massive deal, maybe a 3-year deal worth about $21 to $25 million would do the trick. They can backload that deal maybe a year, maybe 2 years. And really push that cap hit down the line so they can really gather a player like Darrell Williams and put him at right tackle. Because right now, you have Andrew Thomas at left tackle. He's fine. Left guard's a little bit of a question mark because you got Shane Lemieux and you have Will Hernandez. I think they're going to still roll with the rotation there, see who wins the battle. I think they actually have pretty high expectations for Shane Lemieux next season. Nick Gates, good at center. I'm not worried about him. Kevin Zeitler, you can extend him, lower that cap hit. He's at $12.5 million for next season. So if they lower that cap hit by extending him a year or two, this is what I recommended in the last video. Essentially what I think they could do is that they could extend Kevin Zeitler 2 more years, and just bear with me on this one. Lower his cap hit, push it to year 2 and year 3, and after next season, find a guard. Maybe you draft a guy like Wyatt Davis. Maybe you draft someone next year. You sign somebody next year, and then you trade Kevin Zeitler. So you extend him, let him play out 2021, and then trade him for a mid-round pick, gather a selection back, and you lower the cap hit. So I think that's a beneficial move for the Giants. Because there's always team looking for offensive line help. They need help. They need support. Kevin Zeitler's a veteran guy who can come in and immediately impact your line, even if it's next year or the year after. So I think that's a pretty good, smart move the Giants could look into doing. But it also opens up a bit more cap. If you can lower Kevin Zeitler's cap hit to maybe $6-7 million, that opens up $5-6 million that you could roll over to a guy like Darrell Williams. Now, Williams, we haven't had a right tackle in quite some time. We've gone through the Eric Flowers experiment. We've gone through the Mike Remmers experiment. The Bobby Hart experiment. God forbid we go down that avenue again. Darrell Williams is capable of being a good player. We saw it last year with Buffalo. And he knows Dave Gettleman. He's 6'6", 330 pounds. He's a former 4th-round pick. I think that the Giants, might consider looking at him as a potential free agent target. If he's willing to go for $10 million, let's say a 3-year, $30 million deal, that's the same amount the Giants signed Patrick Omameh for 2 years ago. Dave Gettleman, clap for that one. this is a guy who could come in and immediately perform, immediately upgrade this right tackle position, because I don't trust Cam Fleming. He's gone. He's already a free agent, likely not coming back. Matt Peart, let him develop, let him be a swing tackle, literally supplement deficiencies, maybe put him in on run blocking drives. That's kind of what I'm looking at him. Maybe use him as a jumbo tight end. In those jumbo sets, I like that concept a lot as well. But, Darrell Williams is an exciting player that could fit the Giants scheme. He moves bodies in the run game. He's very good in pass protection. He had a very, very good year last year. He's from Oklahoma. So this is a guy that the Giants should be targeting. And, the offensive line needs the help. That's the ultimate thing. It doesn't matter if you get good receivers. It doesn't matter if you get Rashad Bateman, who's climbing on my draft board. He looks phenomenal. A guy like Jalen Waddle, a guy like Kyle Pitts. It doesn't matter if you get premier offensive weapons if you don't have the blocking to let Daniel Jones hit his targets. That is why last year Daniel Jones struggled to move through his progression so fast, because the offensive line was so poor when it came to pass blocking. He didn't even have the time to get through his progressions. He was having to focus on his first and second reads primarily, and they were running the ball more than they probably would have desired to do, because the offensive line couldn't block. Now, if you give him some time, allow him to properly get through the first read, get through the second read, even get to his third read, you're looking at a quarterback who now has more options on the field. You're automatically taking away 2 options if you don't have the correct blocking. Now, if Daniel Jones can get it done, if Daniel Jones has the time, you can look at your weapons. You can look at your guys, whether it's Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, if it's Kyle Pitts, if it's Rashad Bateman, it opens up more time for them to get open. And we see this with other teams, the second routes. Look at the Chiefs, for example. All of their receivers have second routes that they run. And that's because, when their offensive line has their stars into the Super Bowl, didn't show that because they didn't have their starting 2 tackles. But when they do have that offensive line ready, and Patrick Mahomes is so good at maneuvering in the pocket and creating time for himself, the receivers get open. Now, if you have Daniel Jones who has time, he can run, he can maneuver in the pocket, his awareness is getting better, I think that you can see, these players actually maximize their potential, but it starts in the trenches. We know this. Now, I'm really mad that Dave Gettleman hasn't been able to figure this out yet, but it's okay. It's okay because this upcoming offseason, we have an opportunity to do so, but time's running out. That's the not okay part. Time is running out. I don't have the patience anymore to wait another 2-3 seasons for Dave Gettleman to figure this offensive line out. Darrell Williams is a guy who can come in and play immediately and solidify that right tackle spot for the next few seasons. He's a guy I like. He's someone we should be looking at, and someone I'll keep tabs on as the offseason progresses. We'll see what the Giants do at right tackle. But as always, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Fireside Giants. I know it's a shorter one, but I am away on vacation right now, just taking a little break from New York. I haven't done anything in a while, and it's just been working really hard for you guys. So of course I'm recording here, making sure you guys are up to date and staying, just informed with everything that's on my mind, on the Giants' mind, and everything in between. So as always, guys, thank you so much for tuning into this video. Make sure to subscribe below and have an awesome day.